Hello everyone. In my last video I talked about the Israeli settlement in the West Bank and how they are legal according to the international law. Now I'm going to tell you about the West Bank itself. Well, everyone says that the West Bank is occupied territory. Well, the truth is that the West Bank was never a separate territory from the rest of Israel, from the area west of the Jordan River. In fact, there was never an independent, separated Arab Muslim state uh, in the West Bank and in the area west of the Jordan River. It was all the time considered to be a part of the Muslim Arab Empire. The only time it was a separate, independent territory was when it was under control of the Jews. In fact, the major cities in the West Banks are old Jewish towns. Jerusalem, for example, of course, this is the capital of the Jewish nation for more than 3,000 years. This is where our first and second temple was. Hebron is where the grave of our fathers and mothers. We got the grave of Rachel in Bethlehem. We got the grave of Joseph in Nablus. Ramallah, which is the capital of the Palestinian Authority right now, is also used to be a Jewish town. Khalkhul, El Bira, even Jenin, and many others. In fact, I investigated on the internet more than 120 Arab towns in the West Bank, and I found that more than 60 of them, according to archaeological excavation, are all Jewish towns. Now, the center of the Israeli nation, the center of the Jewish nation, is in the West Bank. All of the most important historic events in the Israeli nation and in the Jewish faith occurred there. All the most holy sites for the Jewish nation are there in the West Bank. So calling it an occupied territory is simply unreasonable. It doesn't make any sense. Now you may ask yourself, from where all those people, all those Arabs came from? What is their origin? Are they really lived there for thousands of years? Well, the answer is no. Well, some of them did live there for more than for thousands of years, though. They are the Samaritans. There are some Arabs in Nablus, and especially in the area north of Nablus, like in Awarta and Bet Vazan. And the Arabs there are Muslims that were actually they were Samaritans that were forced to convert to Islam during the oppressive and racist occupation period of the Arabs. Now, today there are only like a few hundreds of Samaritans. This is the remaining of the thousands of years of Muslim oppression and occupation of them. Now, there are also the Christians, especially in the Bethlehem and Ramallah area. Most of them are descendants of the Greeks and the Romans that settled in Israel after the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem in the first century. Now, the Arabs, the Muslim Arabs, are actually separated to two groups. One group is the refugees population. The refugee population is actually a matter for a different video, my next video. Well, I'm gonna make a short statement about that because this is a whole subject. After I investigated the entire area, I found out that the refugee population in the West Banks come mostly from Arab towns that came from around Jerusalem, around Tel Aviv and Gaza, and most of those population which were depopulated in the 1948 War of Liberation, most of them came to Israel in the 19th century from Egypt. This is my conclusion after I investigate the origin of the Arabs from the towns that were said to be depopulated. The rest of them, well, for example, we got in Nablus, the most important and biggest families are the Tukan, the Jarar, and the Nimris. All of them are families from North Syria that were brought to Israel in the 17th century by the Ottomans to replace the very bad, very unprofessional Arab local ruling clans that controlled the areas before that. We got in Ramallah, we got the Barghoutis and the Khadadins. They are tribes from Yemen that came there in the 16th century. The Judea area got many Arab towns and villages that their inhabitants actually belong to the Ta'amra clan, which is a half nomadic Bedouin tribe from Sinai, from the Sinai Desert. Especially in the Hebron area, we got the Tamimi clan. Now, the Tamimi clan is actually one of the most biggest Arab tribe in the world. There are members of that tribe all over the Middle East, from Africa to India. So they also got a representative in Israel to claim that they should have an independent state in Israel after they have so many countries all over the Middle East. It simply that doesn't make any sense. Well, another thing I should say about the Israeli settlements in the West Bank is that 90% of them were built on state-owned lands and not on private-owned lands. Now, what does state-owned lands mean? It means that according to the 1858 Ottoman laws of land ownership, it's land that it's distance 2.5 kilometers, more at least 2.5 kilometers from the farthest house in the nearest Arab town. And that means that the Israeli settlement in the West Bank are placed on territories that were state-owned land for more than 150 years. During the Ottoman period time, and during the British Mandate time, and during the Jordanian occupation time, they weren't private land, they were state-owned lands. The rest, of course, is lands that were bought from private owners, private Arab owners, and some also are confiscated areas. That's true, there are some confiscated private owned land that were confiscated by the army, that's true. But still, 90% of the Israeli settlement in the West Bank are on state-owned land. In fact, during the 80s and 90s, the authorization for construction of settlement in the West Bank was centralized in one person, one woman named Plia Albeck. And before she approved the construction, she went in an army chopper to that area itself and to assure that the Assad territory doesn't interfere with anyone's village, anyone's vineyard or field, and make sure that the roads that reach to that bought territory doesn't interfere with any Arab vineyard or I don't know, a field or something like this. So you just see how the Israeli authorities made sure that they won't harm private owned lands. So this is my statement about the West Bank, which is the center of the Israeli nation and will stay on the center of our nation for a very long time, and nothing gonna change that. And this is why there will never be a Palestinian state over there, because there never was a Palestinian state over there from the first place. Thank you very much. Goodbye.